Leona Hale is a black woman in Kansas City, Missouri, who the police there shot multiple times last Friday, just one of a number of shootings during the Memorial Day weekend that the white media didn't cover all that much until people online decided to highlight it. Anyway, the story from the Thug Patrol in Kansas is that the car Hale and a male friend were in matched the description of a vehicle that was reportedly involved in an armed carjacking. The deadly encounter happened in the parking lot of a Family Dollar. Police say the man that Hale was with leapt out of the driver's side of the car and ran. Hale allegedly also tried to run, and the police gunned her down. While she lay bleeding on the concrete with multiple gunshot wounds, police decided to handcuff her. I guess they were scared that this woman who had all these bullet holes in her was gonna get up and run. After the shooting, the interim police chief for the Kansas City street gang said that the department would be, quote, 100% transparent. They've now announced that they're going to bring charges against Miss Hale, and to bolster this announcement, they've released one lonely, solitary image that they claim is from a body camera. This one screen cap that the Kansas City police saw fit to put out doesn't say much at all. You have a woman holding something, and she's clearly running away from the camera, not towards it. And obviously she's not firing at all. Now, the charges being leveled at Hale are unlawful possession of a firearm and unlawful use of a weapon. Now, you hear the term unlawful use of a weapon, and automatically you think she must have fired the gun. Why, what other possible definition of use of a weapon could there possibly be? Well, as it turns out, under Missouri law, there's plenty of other definitions for unlawful use of a weapon, which is what the police and the DA are resting their entire case on. And the officers involved have apparently made some sort of claims that have gotten its way through the white media, but their accounts sound suspect, as if someone coached them on what to say. One officer, allegedly female, told investigators that she feared that Hale was going to shoot her, and she discharged her firearm one time. A second officer also told investigators that he believed Hale had a firearm pointed at him. So that was the reason they opened fire on her. Fear and belief. Now keep in mind, Hale never fired on anyone, and by the officer's own cherry-picked image, the only one they've seen fit to release, we can only conclude that Hale never pointed her weapon at the police. That is, unless the police were lying on the ground directly behind her, because whatever was in her hand in the picture was pointed downward. The thugs in the KCPD have used weasel words deliberately meant to give the readers the misimpression that Hale was just busting shots at the cops, so they had no choice other than to return fire, when the truth is they were afraid she might fire, and at least one of them said he only believed she had a gun. The police encounter people with guns, white people with guns, all the time. And they don't shoot these white people dead in most cases. Hell, they get into shootouts with white offenders all the time and don't shoot them dead. Want an example? As I posted on my Twitter, just 5 days before police tried to kill Miss Hale, down in San Antonio, Texas, there was a similar incident, albeit with a totally different outcome. A white man, Tyler Ashbaugh, who had an outstanding warrant, was driving around at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he saw a police car with 2 cops in it. He drove his SUV at them at a high rate of speed, then pulled in front of their police car and began firing at them. The police fired back. No one was injured in this exchange. Ashbaugh then sped away, but he didn't get too far before the SUV crashed, forcing him to flee. The San Antonio police called in their SWAT unit, and they worked together to determine where it was that Ashbaugh was at. Now, the San Antonio police, having found the domicile of a man who had just tried to kill 2 of their police officers, a man who they know is armed and dangerous, they've now gotten to where he lives, and what do? The San Antonio police, having tracked and cornered a would-be cop killer to his very home, waited and surveilled the house. They just sat there and waited. They didn't initiate a confrontation. They didn't call themselves starting a fight. They didn't even announce themselves. They just sat there quietly and waited. Eventually, Ashbaugh came out of the house, and when he did, as the white media reported it, he was taken into custody without incident. And what are the charges that this Ashbaugh guy's facing? Now, you would expect that he'd be held without bond, given the severity of what he did, or if they offered bond, it would start at $500,000 per cop he tried to kill. But this is Texas, and apparently they don't do that with some defendants. Dylan Roof murdered 9 people. The report was he killed 9 black people and he still had the gun that he used when the police showed up and took him to Burger King. Peyton Gendron killed 10 people. He still had the assault rifle that he'd used to commit the murders when he was apprehended. The police didn't shoot him either. So much for the "but it was because of their training" argument. We see what they do with non-black people that they deal with, and they treat them exactly the opposite of how they treat black people. The police and the white media work to justify police killing black people for having a gun on their person, or in the case of Tamir Rice, a toy gun that the police didn't even see until after they killed him. Or in the case of Freddie Gray, not even having a gun at all. In fact, the cops didn't even find a weapon until after they had arrested him. And what's the weapon they found? A legal knife in his back pocket. No matter what anyone may think of the circumstances here, compared to how police have handled white suspects who are armed, nothing about this incident justified the use of force.